Welcome to episode 21 of KS wiping his nose before we start.
Yeah.
Of the Service Course Report podcast. The technical, gritty, grindy details of racing and racing some 30, 40 years ago as well. We are on Spotify, where you can watch us. We're on Apple Podcasts, where you can listen to us. They'll have video soon. And we're on YouTube if you want shorter little snippets of us and you don't have an hour. And who are we? My name's Ed Philbrick. I'm a longtime cyclist. Probably started racing in 1983. Ran a bike shop. Worked in and around the industry. Worked for Roadrunner Sports. Represented professional golfers. I'm currently a realtor. And I'm a retired gravel cyclist, wanting to only ride modern XC bikes because they're better than gravel bikes.
Ooh,
and
I like it.
And I also ride my road bike because if you want to be good on a mountain bike, you got to have a big engine, and you can get that on the road doing group rides. So need to do more group rides. How about you guys? Who are you?
KS. Oh, all right. Both of us, we were stalling that. Who am I? I am a cycling enthusiast. I was just thinking about, as you were talking about all the stuff that you've done, and I was just thinking how much I like riding bikes, which is why I'm in New Jersey right now, because I crammed in a little bit of time out on the bluffs this afternoon before our pod, just because I just wanted to go out and ride. Fitness, yes. Handling, yes. All that, but just because it makes me feel good. So, I started riding as a kid and never even knew that you could make a living like with bikes. I mean, racing, let alone in the industry, but that was what I've ended up doing, and it's great. And I'm just happy to say that I still love riding bikes. I think they're just awesome and amazing. I look at my new gravel bike or my mountain bike, and I just think they're incredible. I get an old 1980s stump jumper in for repair that still miraculously works perfect. All the indexing shifts, and kind of 40-year-old amazes me.
There's no indexing.
So I just, bright orange. That was incredible with the old Dior shifters that you could switch them from friction to indexed, the thumb shifters that were up on the top. It was like worked perfect, like literally washed it and threw a little lube in the cables, and every gear hit, brakes were fine. It'd been hanging for, I don't know, a couple decades. So that's who I am. I'm a bike enthusiast and figure out how to make a living doing that. What about you, Cass?
I would echo what Darren said. Been riding bikes for the majority of my life. How's my audio? I know it's been a little weak. I think
I was saying an echo. You were like, you echoed what I said. And
echoed what you said. Yes, yes. Yeah, riding the bike is, I've said it before. I'll say it again. It's like my happy place. It's a place to go and just kind of, if anything's bugging you, or bugging me, I know I can go out and ride and just kind of erase all that and just get out and enjoy being outside and pedaling and going around corners, and been doing that for the better part of 4.5 decades, even a little bit longer. I mean, since we all met in the 1980, in the early, I would say the 80s, but in 1980 doing that. Have worked in the bike industry, running teams, managing teams, doing marketing, product development, all sorts of that type of stuff. And yes, I've actually just started a new little bike project for myself, which I'll talk about a portion of that a little bit later in the episode. But
nice tease.
And it's fun. It's like, some people got into video games, some people got into Dungeons and Dragons. I got into bikes, and I'm still there. So happy to be here, and happy to be here with you guys podcasting.
Yeah.
What's a piece of modern technology that you like, Cass? What's your favorite modern tech you like?
My favorite, I guess as modern as we could call it, disc brakes on drop bar bikes. I mean, we started riding disc brakes on mountain bikes in the, like middle to late 90s?
That was 97 was the first muggers we got that did not work great. But then 98, the first haze, which were amazing. Haze,
and that was a game changer.
That was it?
Yeah. But I say, I see all this banter on, like if you look at the socials, especially when it first started about disc brakes, how terrible they are. And, they're, they're dangerous, blah, blah, blah. That's what's causing crashes, this and that. disc brakes are so much better than rim brakes. Oh my gosh. I mean, and then when you went from aluminum rims to carbon rims, the braking got worse.
Yes.
If you all remember that, right?
Yeah.
They had problems with brake pads disintegrating and rims heating up and tires blowing off. And it's like, disc brakes, they can make different rim shapes. You can always stop, wet or dry. I mean, they modulate great. You never can't stop. Yeah. I mean, sure, stuff actually happens, but that's it. That's my modern tech.
How about you, DS?
Well, when you first said modern tech, but I guess isn't modern. I was going to say a hot shower is probably one of my most favorite modern tech items, because I would think about that. What would you trade for a hot shower? If you had to give up your hot water bathing, a shower, bath, whatever, but especially a shower fast. I mean,
hot shower is marginal gain on steroids, right? I mean, come on. It's like sanitizing, recovery, mental.
The whole nine. But if we're talking bike tech, I would say tubeless tires off-road. They've finally settled into where they're pretty easy to get on. I have a repeatable system, and they're just like, I'm not thumbing my nose at the flat tire gods. I'm bowing and praying to them to pay homage and not get any bad juju, saying just how amazing it is. For Santa Barbara is really rocky for people who don't know. And so all the front side trails around here, mountain bike, even the low gravel trails, there's always rock out there. I mean, Cold Spring and Tunnel, if people have seen them, the mountain bike trails are like sections of rock. And I'm amazed at how well tubeless does. Put some sealant in there, air them up, they do good. Like, they're incredible.
Give me your 20-second highlight on how to best mount a tire. Like, leave the tire in the driveway and let it get hot. What's your hot tip?
You know what? The main key is, and it takes a little trial and error on your setup, is having the correct tightness. Like, I've had, if you have a tire and you try and get up on it, won't beat up, like it won't catch. I think making sure that you have, the correct tape on there. There's sometimes if a setup is too loose, I'll take a thin piece of tape and put it over the spoke holes and then another full piece of tape over top, just to tighten up the diameter, increase the diameter of the channel a little bit, so that when you put that first of air in, it grabs instantly and picks it up over, rather than, spooging sealant out the side and you're like wiggling your tire trying to get it to grab as it's all blowing out all over you.
So what kind of secondary tape are you using?
I use the same tape. I just have a couple different widths. So I got like some narrow stuff. I've had really good luck with that whiskey tubeless tape because it's a little stretchy. It's like that translucent yellow. Yeah. And that I find is really great. It almost kind of not sticks together, but if you do double layer it. And so I have, I can't remember the millimeter of it. So like on my mountain bike rims, I think it's a 30 mil width, and I can't remember what fits over the spoke bed. I think 21. And on my gravel wheels, they're 21. And I had something narrower I stuck in on one of them, or maybe I actually put actual two layers, but either way, to make sure that that's tight enough. I don't want to burp air. And that was well over 20 seconds.
That was a good answer.
But that's usually if it's tight, it'll snap up on there right away. I hopefully like to just get a tire on without any sealant in it, that it should just come up and get back on, and then I'll just pop in one spot and put the lever in and pour it in. If I've used the tires a bunch and I'm really know that it's going to go right on there, I'll just put the tire in, and right at the very end before I snap it on, I'll just pour sealant in and then snap it on and fill it up. But usually I try and get it to fill up, to bead, I should say, excuse me, with no sealant in it. Just get it the first time to get up on there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you don't ever fill through the valve? You fill...
Sometimes I do. Off? Like the original stands, is pretty good and thin. So sometimes, like if it's already on, I will do it through the valve. If I'm putting a brand new tire on, if I haven't had to pour the pull the valve out for, any part of it, I usually don't put the sealant back in through the valve. If I'm doing like a refill on a tire that's been on there and you figure it's probably a little dry, yeah, I'll do that. Screw the little syringe on there and put it in. But when I put the tire on first, I just, like I said, I get it all the way on and try and get it to seed with no sealant in it at all. Or if I'm pretty confident that it's going to seal, when I just get down to the very end before I snap it on, I'll just pour the sealant right in and do it. And then, and then fill it up. The key is just making sure it's on the outside of the valve, both of your sides of the bead so it doesn't seep under and then, get some
You got
grab.
any tips on how much sealant you're adding? You count 4 spokes, 3 spokes?
It started off with ounces and then, my tires have been getting readily bigger. So I had a little more in. My mountain bike, I don't measure as much. I just kind of pour in and I can kind of tell by the size of the puddle, the puddle in there, usually what's pretty good. I feel like I can't remember if it was. I think it was originally 2 ounces. You put in like a smaller size tire, and then I think I've gone up a little bit from there. I'm not so stressed about the weight, so I would rather have a little bit more sealant than a little bit less sealant, just so it can do its job. But also I don't want to do like when we used to fill up the inner tube on your buddy's bike with water and not tell him. We did this. Valve core. Fill it with water. We did that to JT. I can't remember who else we did it to. And you're riding and you're just like, dude, it's so heavy. It's like, it was pretty funny.
Your dad had a brown truck and
Yeah.
one person had to ride in the back, and that person would abuse the other people's bike.
Yeah, for making
get
you
home.
ride in the back.
You'd get home and both cranks were facing forward.
I
or
did
you'd
that to
have-
your bike one time, I'll admit.
Yeah. Or you'd have uptime in the brake lever hoods. You'd be like peeling back, and there'd be like these little
Sometimes
caffeine
you
pills.
put pennies in my lever hoods, and I remember riding it. I'm like, God, what? Something feels different about my levers. I'm like kind of very finicky and like squeezing. I'm like, what is that? And like pull back in, and there's like pennies wedged in there. I think though that may have been the same trip that I did the crank. So I was like, well, what are you gonna do? Yeah, that was pretty.
All
fun.
right. So,
All right. So yeah.
so KFs, you do any interesting rides this last 10 days?
Since we last spoke, well, today I actually, as I might have alluded to or mentioned earlier, I did get out for a little road ride. I don't know, about 75, 80 minutes today, just up and down and around out in Nevada City. I went down below a loop that was dubbed the Le Mans loop from when Greg raced the Tour in Nevada City at one point, and they did a pre-ride with him, and they did this short loop. So everyone calls that loop the Le Mans loop. And then when we first moved to town, our buddy Stan Sanderson, he showed us a little add-on to that loop. So we call it the Stan Mond loop. So I did the Stan Mond loop, except I didn't do the loop. I just did the tiny Stan loop at the bottom and came back up the climb. I went down because it keeps me off a busier road that also goes by the high school. And why I think I was going to miss the kids getting out of school. I just don't want to go by high school on a Friday. And then kind of rode up above. I did that. But what was fun was last weekend was stop 2 of the Grasshopper Adventure Series. So just about 90 minutes from here in Nevada City, a little town called Maxwell, California, which is a little blip on the map. And that's the Huffmaster Hopper, stop number 2. And the 2 routes, like a 55 and a 92 mile, the shorter and the longer route, both of them are about 50-50 pavement to dirt. And it was like the most perfect conditions you can imagine. I mean, the gravel roads were smoother than the paved roads, for one thing. It was bumpier on the pavement.
Nice.
That was nice. And the weather, I mean, we got to the low 70s, high scattered clouds, not much wind, just green rolling hills everywhere. The wildflowers were just starting to pop. I mean, it was amazing. So I was able to get out and I did the shakeout ride that they hosted on Friday afternoon. And we had well over 50 people at noon on a Friday, which was pretty impressive.
That's good.
Yeah. And beautiful. Both days were beautiful. And then day of, I knew from last year that when I got caught by the leaders on the long course, when I rode the short course, that I needed to be able to get back because I need to take care of the post event interviews. And so I jumped in the van and drove the 10 miles of pavement out and did the big loop for the short course out there, which was a little bit more dirt than pavement, and then drove back and made it back, and got all the interviews. And it was epic race day.
Nice.
Yeah, epic race day. The men's race came down to a 3-rider sprint, like where they came down to almost a track stand toward the end to jockey
really?
position. Yeah. And then first time ever, Miguel did a separate start for the women, so they had their own race. And they also agreed, that they wouldn't jump in with any age groupers that caught them. So the women had their own, prize fight, punch them down, drag them out race as well. So it was really cool. And that one came down to, I think it was 4 riders, but as soon as they started sprinting, it quickly became a 3-rider sprint as well. So exciting racing, great conditions. Yeah, I mean, it was just like, everything was cool.
Who was the winner?
Yeah, I'm gonna say, and then Hopper Do
Hopper Part 5,
and I would say probably the highlight of my day was a guy we spoke about a few episodes ago, a guy named Scott McKinley.
Yeah.
I got done with all the interviews, and I was on this little narrow road out in these rice fields in the Central Valley there, and I'm getting ready to do my 17-point turn to turn around to get back to the venue. And I see this guy riding by. I mean, I felt like Austin Powers, I was
I was just
except that there's a muddy gully on both ends. So,
nice.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. And all of a sudden I look out my window and this guy's riding by and he does this and he goes, and it was McKinley. So, yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, we had talked about him. He's I told him he's no longer the youngest rider to win a stage of a 12 Bessèges. He's like, what? I was like 19 when I won that. So so that was really cool. Saw him as well. So
yeah, that was
good riding. Yeah, and getting to see some old friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who won the Huffmaster, men and women?
Brennan Wirtz won his 3rd in a row. The past 2 years, he attacked and came in solo. He waited until the last flat gravel section. 2 years ago, there was a giant mud hole, and he attacked going into it because he knew there was one line right down the middle because he did recon the morning of.
Yeah,
and
recon.
He did like the last. It was like that was probably 7K from the finish. Last year he waited a little bit further, but again he attacked because there was a ton of washboard, and he's a big dude. Like he towers over all of us. And then this year he won it in a sprint. And then in the women's side, there was a woman named Leah Shafi from Portland. She came down, and this was only the 2nd Grasshopper that she ever raced. And the first one she did was 3 years ago at this event, what they called the Mud Master instead of the Huffmaster, because it was one of those events, kind of like what happened at Unbound a couple years ago, except like most of the dirt was like that. And she came back and won that one in a sprint as well. So those were the 2 winners.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I just want to say, how's the vibe at the event? Like, it's good people stoked. Is there like that kind of competition buzz, start of the year buzz? People got new kits, new bikes, is it more of a mellow scene? Is it
I mean, as I say, it's like you get it to any of these events, and I would say really, it's the top pros that are racing, except every person in every category is also racing.
Right.
And I guess, the vibe was good. I mean, I think just because the weather was there and everyone was super stoked. There are still some people that are a bit shell-shocked from the muddy event 3 years ago. You just got to get over it. But no, it was good. And the city really just kind of rolls out the little red carpet that they have there. We have this beautiful park, freshly cut grass. It was super, super high stoke factor on that for sure. So yeah, people seemed really excited. And I would say my one highlight was the kid that won the junior category for the short course also was 2nd overall on the short course. So that was pretty impressive.
Oh, wow.
Because short course is one mass start, where the long course they go and
And
So
how?
pro men, pro women, and then 10-year chunks.
Right.
Yeah.
And how long? What's the distance of the short course? What is that?
It was just over 54 miles. So enough that you need to drink and
Yeah.
eat a little and
Right.
be smart about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the long one was like 92, I believe. Yeah, and
That sounds like about
they
42 long.
And there's a portion of that over about 42 long.
The 92 sounds like about 42
Yeah.
long for DS.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
that
yeah.
sounds good.
Yeah, so it was a great time.
Nice.
Yeah, I
Nah,
enjoyed
but-
these events, and I get to do the announcing, which is always fun. So I kind of get to know these people a little bit more and more, and I get to, I'm slowly learning the new riders that are coming up in the gravel scene from generally from the Northern California area, those that weren't down south, down in Arizona, because that's where you were, right, Ed?
Yeah, yeah. The 7-hour drive out to Arizona, which is always a annual weekend with my friends. We head out on Thursday and we try and ride Thursday night a little bit. We only rode like an hour Thursday night, but then we did our favorite downhill stretch on Friday, and all of us raced the Wafer, which was 65 miles, and two of us did the full Waffle, which was a little over 100. But we had exceptional heat, rumored to be record temperatures for that part of the world for February, which is still winter in the desert. So it was in the low 90s, probably high 80s the bulk of the time.
That's
And
tough.
that really caught me off guard. My stomach wasn't processing the hydration, and I wasn't hydrated enough, and so I started to cramp. And then it was one of those things where I was cramping so bad, this volunteer sees me and he comes up and he goes, "You all right? Anything I can do for you?" I'm like, "No, I don't think there's anything you can do for me." So I'm like cleaning my glasses, just waiting for the rebar cramps to stop.
The re-
And he's looking at me, he goes, "Mind me asking how old you are?" And I go, "You know what? I'm not quite as old as he's hoping I am." You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to disappoint him with my answer. I go, "Oh,
Right.
I'm 58." He's like, "Oh, I'm 62." And I go, "Yeah, it really starts catching up with you." And he's like, "Oh, yeah." He's all, 52 years old was my fastest Ironman ever. It was all downhill from there.
52.
Yeah. It's an
Yeah.
interesting event. It's grown every year. I notice it pulls in riders from the West, Utah, probably farther away than that. A lot of old males in skin suits, which is sort of a interesting vibe. Um, the pros dialing in their bikes. Talked to a number of riders on an Italian brand that's growing its market share, which I won't call out, that had put their bikes together last week, and
Right.
we're just getting them figured out. And I'm like, bro, man, like that just sounds amateur. Like you're telling me you put your bike together yesterday and you're sponsored by this company.
Yeah.
A lot of front suspension on the pros. I would say a quarter of them, maybe 30%, are on front shocks, depending on their sponsorship relationship or their lack of clearance in their bike.
Right.
So if they have poor
Yeah.
clearance, maybe they're leaning more towards it.
Yeah.
Finsterwald, who won the race in a 2-up sprint, he chased down Andrew L'Esperance Lesby, who's a mountain biker, I think,
Yeah,
by
oui.
background. Chased him down and beat him in the sprint, so it was one of the closest finishes in gravel ever, inches. I noticed that Finsterwald, who recently left Trek, looked to still be on his Trek with stickers over the top of it, trying to call it a look. I'm not quite sure what it was, but he had a lot of stickers over the top of his purple bike.
Right.
Mostly road pedals, mostly 2.2, tires. Haley Batten soloed and won her second gravel race because she won Seattle in dominating fashion last year. She's your Olympic silver medalist.
Yeah.
So well attended. Unfortunately, there was a young family or a family that was underprepared. That was, the dad was airlifted off the course. The son showed up, with heat exhaustion. Some people showed up ill prepared, thinking
Yeah.
that it's a family fun ride. So it's interesting factor to keep in mind is, racing in the desert is no joke.
Yeah.
Um,
Did I read correctly that Haley Batten won by over 13 minutes?
Correct, she did.
Yeah, she just like went solo and just kept growing the gap pretty much the entire time, huh?
Yeah, and the
Yeah,
riders behind her were, they're skilled riders. I mean, it was the woman who won the first Lifetime Grand Prix.
yeah.
I think her name is Haley Smith.
Haley Smith. That's
Yeah,
Lesby's wife too.
yeah,
So they both got second.
yeah. And
Yeah,
then, yeah, it was good, good field behind her. It wasn't like,
yeah.
and she was gassed when she came across the finish line. All my friends are joking because I'm there filming her bike and all these videos. Like, what were you doing? You're like walking around there filming her. But anyway, I was filming her bike and she was gassed. Like,
Yeah.
she was working hard to get those 13 minutes. So,
She seems like she can tap into that. She's one of those athletes that can definitely go deep, like they almost don't realize how blasted they are until they cross the line. And then it just kind of all comes out.
yeah, it
Like
was
Roman
interesting.
Bardet. That
You
Tony
know,
minute.
a lot of DNF,
Yeah.
a lot of pro DNFs. I think part of the reason was that aid station number 3, the last aid station, was at the start finish line. And if you were out of the race, you just kind of bagged it right there.
Yeah.
But a lot of DNFs, and that's the way Michael Marks would want it. He wants it to be a really, really hard monument distance. It's not anymore, but classic hard event, and
Right.
he's created that. And I think the mountain bikers did well. I think if you look across all the categories, Ned Overend was second in the wafer. Um, they're all mountain bike background near the top. They were
Yeah.
able to carry water and work hard.
Yeah. And gain speed in areas and be smooth. It's funny. I was just thinking as you were saying that there are all the people that did well are mountain bikers. I remember, and it may have actually been the first year that the Cactus Cup moved down to that McDowell Park. And it was when Paul Willerton, awesome dude, great part of American racing. He was showing up and he was doing some mountain bike. I don't even remember the team configuration or how that all came out, Kiss. That might pop into your gray matter a little bit better. But there was this section where we were going out. You left the arena and it was just like a strung out, like fire road. And everybody's just in line going, brr. And then from pre-riding the course, you knew that it came in, there was just like this tight turn. You kind of went up over like, I don't know, almost like a sand wall, wash, and then back up and exited the area, kind of went a different way. And I remember sitting behind in Willerton, and you're just in line. And I'm going, oh man, I really want to move up before the corner, but you can't. Like it's just going fast. And if you try and get out of the main line, which people, if you aren't used to riding dirt, there's like a main line in dirt that's cleared off, right, of everything. And you see them get out. And so I'll never forget just sitting there, we're going along and it's just freaking straight and it's double track. And the left one is the one that's in really good shape. And the right one has all the rocks and everything strewn into it. And I just hear this like rattling up on the ride. I mean, it's Willerton, and he's just like trying to pass on that long stretch with just everybody in the line. And he was working so hard. And I think he got maybe two people, and then he was trying to like get back in. And then, it came to the corner. So anyway, to that, and obviously went on to race some more and do different stuff off road. But that was like at the beginning. And I can remember making those type of mistakes too, you don't realize. And so if you think of in 100 miles or something like that of single track and just little corners and braking and everything, you just save so much energy over time. And mountain biking, you're just used to doing that. That's part of the sport. That's where you get, that's where you gain that, you gain that little bit of extra free time, is in your skill set. So I could totally see that happening.
That efficiency.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Knowing when to apply it or not, especially because I waited until the left turn and I just late braked and went sliding right up the inside of like a whole bunch of people there setting up to the comm, and then was over the, over the little knuckle, no energy at all, maybe a little extra foot push, but that was about it.
It was interesting. We started by going north on the road towards, Alaska or Canada or whatever. We were north on the road. So it was a long road section to start. And then we started rolling. And then the first dirt section, people cut the course and climbed up on it. And then right away there was a motorcycle guard, cattle guard, or fencing. And some guy's handlebar, like, my handlebar was in some guy's front wheel, so he was like dragging me through the thing. It was such a scramble. And then you get on the dirt and you're kind of exhausted because you've just been,
scrumming,
scrum all the way. And me, I started too far back and got all the way up to the front, which was like, wasted energy really in the long run, because I probably finished in the back 2/3 at the end of the day. But I got all the way to the front, to get dragged through the cattle fencing. And it's just an economy of motion, saving energy, but it really all comes down to the last 30 miles, so extremely challenging. I didn't enjoy the event. I really didn't. No. I felt awful, and so I didn't really have that good of a time. But I enjoyed the weekend. The overall weekend, swimming in the pool, hanging out, cooking with my friends, going out to eat, laughing, that part. I don't enjoy the drive out there, but it was a good weekend. It's a great weekend, but I was a little too miserable in the event even though there was amazing flowing mountain bike trails. I mean, that's McDowell State Park is unbelievable riding. But if you don't feel well, it's hard to enjoy it.
Yeah.
That part's hard to fake.
Yeah.
That sounds maybe not quite as bad, but like your crusher in the Tusher story, KS, where you were just obliterated.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least I did get to laugh at myself the entire way.
That's what I asked Ed when he was telling me about it, when we were talking after the race, and told me that his legs are just feeling terrible. I think his stomach too and everything, and you were like, you were trying to rate exactly how bad the overall experience was. Just escaped my mind. Just lost my train of thought. What did you say right before that, KS?
We're talking about
the
crusher?
Sometimes. Oh, yeah, I know what the line was that I asked Ed was when I was trying to gauge how bad his legs were, was he questioning any of his life's decisions while he was out there? Because
completely.
So the legs were, when you're questioning life decisions out on the ride, that's when you got the bad legs. You're like, dude, what am I?
Well, and when 70 people are passing you, 70 is a lot of people, and you just have to like kind of pull over sometimes. And some people were passing me that annoy me, like I get annoyed when they're passing me, like, but there's nothing I can do.
That's the annoying part. Like they're passing me and I have no recourse. I'm just watching them go by. You're not like saving for later. You're not going to sit in a little bit and then get them back. You're just like,
you got nothing. Yeah.
That's pretty funny. So
I was looking on my computer, I was looking down at how many more miles of climbing there was, because I had no problem with the downhill. I'm like, okay, we're going to do 8 miles of downhill. I just kept looking at the elevation remaining. And at the end, there was this 125 stuck on my computer. And I'm like, oh, what is this 125 feet going to be? Some annoying thing. And it really was probably nothing too annoying at the end. It was just like we went on the side of this wash and we went through,
Right.
But I was like counting down the elevation because that was my only problem.
Right. Getting over the last hill.
Yeah.
That's
right,
always,
we had opening weekend,
Omloop
and KBK. Any observations?
All sorts of observations.
Well,
I would think. Yeah. What do you think, KS?
I was thinking that I was thinking back to our pod number 20 when DS was talking about Ed, you made the comment that you thought Remco should race Flanders. DS, you said he's a bit of a locomotive and he's not he's a bit more, lack of a better term, rigid on the bike. And it was on the Omloop at the start of the Molenberg climb where the selection was really made. And we also talked about how a rider like Mathieu van der Poel is just like, he's so fluid on the bike and he moves, and he showed that souplesse, We watched it, and I actually have I can bring it up here in a moment, but it was like, Florian Vermeersch was throwing down at the bottom of that climb, and he had a little gap, and he went through the corner just on the inside of the crown of the road, as they went into the cobbles, and it narrowed down and it was wet. And then, it was Matteo Trentin. He was over the crown, lost his front wheel, went down, and Vanderpool just he did like this, one of those things like
he Vanderpooled.
He Vanderpooled, like when you put a cat near water and they do like some amazing movement so that their body doesn't go in the water and they end up not in the water. Yeah, that was that. And just that, ultimately they were the two motors that had the race going, but it just, I watched that, and I actually have I can bring up this video here. Well, hopefully we won't.
Yeah, Vanderpool unclips to lift his foot over Trentin's head and then hops his bike.
Yeah,
kind of. Here we go.
Check this out.
Oh yeah, dude, love some bike racing slow. Oh yeah, look at that. Just look at Vanderpool.
It's a little out of. Yeah, it's like he got him with his foot.
Yeah. Well, he hopped, but he was he was so off balance that he had to get out the foot to save it. But that's the point, is that he did just put the foot out and save it like no big thing, kind of hop it up, and gets his left foot out and then just pushes off and dabs and straightens right back up. Nice move by whoever went around in the gutter as well.
But,
is that a Swiss jersey? No, that's a
thing,
Trek.
Too with Vanderpool in that instance is that it was like he never stopped his forward motion. A lot of times you see these riders, like something happens like that and they freeze up and freak out a little bit, and it takes a moment or even a couple of moments to regain their composure, where it was just like, was another...
Well, you learn how to correct without hitting the brakes.
Yeah, and that was it. So that was cool to watch, and then we were talking about this before off camera. DS, you mentioned, he probably clipped in and out of his pedals more times in the cross season than the majority of these riders do the entire road season.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
So it's no big
foot
thing.
In and out. Yeah.
It's right at the front of one of the drawers of his toolbox, like short list is to do that. And the push off also. And you just get used to all that. I mean, that's just some straight cross action. Look how narrow those I mean, and then right up, and then just Trentin, and then right.
But it was interesting. Trentin lost his rear wheel, right? Because he's over the crown. But as he's falling there, and we can analyze this a little bit like 1,000 other people have done, but he didn't stop pedaling. As he started to lose the rear wheel,
well, I think that was,
he keeps pedaling. Maybe it was that one pedal stroke, but it's like, Vermeer's bike's doing like this, sorry, and, they're keeping it, but you were going to say?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, too, and you'd point out Vermeer's, you could see how when his bike starts to go, he adjusts the power a little bit, and just gives it a little bit. But Trentin, it kind of caught him out. I think for Trentin, being on the outside of the crown was probably the worst part of it, because you're on an off camber, and maybe then a little bit too much of a pull up or something. But those roads are so narrow. The Cobble Classics are so awesome.
And then you say he was on the outside of the crown, but he was basically on it, right? He was just over the top. He was over the crux, and that was it, man. It was like, or the fulcrum, I should say.
Yeah. Vermeersch is our current gravel world champion. He's finished top three every gravel worlds that's existed, I believe. He's got some bike handling skills. He also showed up and finished top 3 at Paris-Roubaix when he was in 21, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you can tell he looks good on a bike. Like the way he pedals, you got that extra bit of suppleness to him,
He's also 6'4".
Yeah. Yeah, hey, he gives up a big draft, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, and that was, of all the racing, that I did not watch the KBK, so I don't have any comments.
It was less exciting, still exciting, just a less exciting setup of a race, Yeah.
I did actually take it upon myself to watch the last 100 kilometers of the Newsblad. I was like, okay, this is going to be good. Because oftentimes we watch those highlights and you don't see everything that leads into it with the weather, with missed feeds, with flats or crashes and that type of stuff. And it puts the race in a lot better perspective. And one of the things that I noticed also from watching that, that the last 100K is how Van der Poel was pretty invisible until this part of the race.
Right.
So he was like
saving it up,
had a plan, and his team was riding for him. I mean, yes, I think they had a two-pronged approach with Philipsen, but he got caught out and ended up chasing a bit. So that's never good for a sprinter. But
right.
As it turns out, there was no sprint finish, so
no,
didn't matter.
I always subject my Airbnb roommates, usually about 6 guys, to watch whatever the World Tour race is. First year it was Strade Bianche, so I made them watch that. They're like, "Oh, what is this?" I'm like, and then this year it was on loop, and we get up at 5:30 in the morning, so I had it on, and every time they looked over at the laptop, someone was crashing in the rain, so they just, and then you watch the highlight sequence. It's 8 minutes on YouTube. It's just all crashes,
Yeah.
And so I felt like they were getting the wrong flavor of the race. It's good to watch the entire race to really watch it unfold. There's more than just crashes.
Yeah, and see everything. Yeah, I'm definitely not the blood vultures, the people that just love the crashes, the highlight reels. That is a bit of a bummer, when they put it up there. But yeah, it was, that was, I paid homage to the Kern Brussels Kern on Sunday with my gravel ride dubbed Carpcito Carp, with the dashes. So I had to keep it real. I had to keep it real. My own little version out here. Yeah, that was the Omloop, seeing those guys crash. It's leading into this is my what went wrong, and you guys can see what you think about it. But just watching that, like, okay, it's one thing when you have a race and, specific conditions will come up. We were talking about there was that stage 2 of the tour, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, where the roads had been repaved and it got wet. But this was like not uncommon, no roads were repaved. Granted, it was wet and all that, but to see that many of the world's best racers just like looking like they're on an icing rink, what went wrong is to the people putting those bikes under them and making them like, dude, how can that level of the sport, because you think, how can that level of the sport, how can it look like that? How can you have that many crashes? Not all of those guys are that bad of bike handlers, an Omloop, when they were just like crashing out. And then it's easy for people to say, oh, you get some road rash or whatever, but it's like can be season ending for people, what's his name? Was it Wellens or somebody else looked like they hit the deck pretty hard, holding their shoulder and stuff. And so, we've talked about this before in previous pods, and that we don't see we see a lot of statistics about aerodynamics and that type and rolling resistance, but do we see any statistics about better handling? What's producing more grip? What handles better in a crosswind? What you can make quick reactions in. And it's just, I think they're overlooking the fact that the bikes still have to be a big factor of this.
Well, I think the teams are slowly hearing you. They mostly were on 30 tires this year. That was a big change. Most of them were on 30. There was a couple teams on 32s. And interestingly enough, the Continental ASTR, the all-season Continental, is now coming out in a 35, which I'm going to rush out and buy. That's exciting. So I think, slowly the teams are trying or learning,
Are you sure they were on 32s? Because we talked last week that the UCI limit is 31 for road. So was it a 32 hot patch, or did someone actually throw the calipers on the tires?
This was one of the media outlets reporting on what the hot patches were. But
okay, yeah,
I feel like there's something going on with that UCI rule. We need to delve a little deeper into that, because I think they can run 32s and
32s. So maybe it's changed.
Yeah, maybe they're just not enforcing the rule or something.
Yeah, that was 11 months ago that they came out with that, so maybe it has been adjusted.
Yeah.
I mean, I would add to your what went wrong, DS. It's like, okay, with all these crashes, the UCI put in all these rules last year, and I was like, narrow bars didn't cause the crashes, right? Right. And SRAM 10 cogs didn't cause the crashes.
No.
And I was like, and deep rims didn't cause the crashes. It's like, so what was it? It's
right.
Like,
because they shallowed the rims, which we were talking about last time.
They also say
Yes.
road furniture is worse coming into all these towns. These towns are trying to keep their citizens safe and slow
Right.
down cars. So, road furniture has gotten worse. Everyone has a radio, and every director says get to the front. So everyone can't be on the front. You know, there's a lot of other factors besides just equipment. I
Well,
Right.
think the new
that's the
modern rain
point. Yeah.
jackets. I think the new modern rain jackets are so tight fitting that they're hard to operate and get in and out of, and those guys are all freezing and
Yeah.
they're all shaking their hands. It's still a miserable session.
Well, I
Yeah,
would say
definitely.
if today was April 1st, I could say I just read that the UCI is going to outlaw rain in races, and they're going to outlaw riders overlapping wheels, and they're going to outlaw corners on courses because there's lots of crashes in corners,
Yeah.
and they're going to outlaw crosswinds. So that'll get rid of the crashes, right?
I'll have to remember to get back and read their explanation of why they claimed that their science was good on limiting rim depth to 65 millimeters. Because it seems to be the sticking point. It's so much safer out there now that they're only on 65 mil rims, the UCI.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a bit of sarcasm.
UCI amateurs. Oh,
But
man.
yeah, so I don't know. I was just a little bit shocked. Like I've seen crashing, but that just seemed like a little ridiculous. So that's my what went wrong is, dude, like what? That's not a good show. Just like you were talking about your friends, right? That's not what they tune in. You're like, dude, the best road cyclists and classics weekend. And, it's like dominoes going down. And then the other part of that too, is we noted on some of the other websites that were, and yes, road furniture too, I think is a really good point, Ed, because you have brought that up and we've talked about that, or maybe we've just seen it that, that has been increasing in certain areas. All the more reason why they would need to have the bikes handling better. But I did notice on a lot of the different websites that were reporting on the actual equipment that they were riding, there's a lot of carbon spokes in the wheels now. And I wondered if that could also contribute to just like a lack of feel, because when you have those crashes where you're just going along and then your wheels are out from under you, it's usually that you just really completely misjudge how much grip you have. You don't, your feel of the ground is not what you think it is. So all of a sudden you go from, oh yeah, to, and it's out from under you. So I wondered if the carbon spokes could be a part of that too.
I think, yeah, the wheels are stiffer and more aero, but they're less compliant. I think that's to the point you're making, right? It's
less
it's
compliant.
one
Just a
whole
carbon
piece.
rim. Yeah, a carbon rim is manufactured like a frame, in essence.
Right.
With a mold like that, it doesn't get the same flex out of it that the alloy rims and shallower rims, the rim flexes more. Once they get stiffer, the rim itself is staying pretty true, and you're getting more of that flex out of the spokes and other components you could program flex into the hub or the through axle or something like that. But it's still not the same feel, as the part that's contacting the road, having that, having a little bit more feel to it. So we'll see. I mean, it is not every race is run on cobbles in the rain, but it's not like this is a non-recurring issue. So I guess we'll have to see what happens here. We got the Strad. Is it tomorrow, right? Saturday?
It is.
Yeah.
Saturday.
Yeah. So we'll have to see on that one. That should be really good.
And have you, not that we like to try to predict what's going on, but did we see, is the weather going to be good for that race? Have you guys seen anything on that?
I don't
think
look.
No mud?
No mud, unfortunately. I want to see the mud, but
The white pasted mud, just like, yeah. Yeah, that's pretty sick. So it should be good. There's a lot of competing storylines, I guess. So it'll be interesting to see who actually can throw it down.
well, we want to see a good race with a lot of action. We want to see a
Yes.
lot of characters, not just one or two main characters.
Correct.
We want
Yeah.
a 5 to 10 man character cast.
Yeah, lots of teams, lots of people involved.
Yeah, lots of people involved. Lots of people have a chance to win.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think it's the same thing kind of on the women's side as well. It's kind of pretty wide open with the Vollering racing real well. PFP coming back to race. Kopecky realized she's not a tour contender anymore and going back to her roots of these one-day races. It should be pretty interesting.
Yeah,
I
nice.
appreciate you talking about the women's race. We know we have 0.0001% of our viewership is female, so we need to keep covering
Yeah.
female cycling
Gather
and
that.
attract. Kurt is knows a lot about female bike racing and has a lot to bring value to, and so thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, the racing is exciting.
Racing is
it's
exciting.
yeah. We'll have more of that by end of day tomorrow.
Yeah.
So this draw.
Yeah, that's for sure.
What else we got going on here?
Well, I want to back up. I think my
Yeah.
what went wrong, I have under
Yeah.
blinded
Yeah.
by science. My what went wrong is my diet. I had 2 eggs on tortillas before the start of the wafer at 5:30 in the morning watching En Loop. Probably had some coffee. My breakfast hadn't quite moved through when I needed my hydration going in at 100 miles an hour. So I was too full to take in hydration. I had a frozen hydration pack, which I thought was brilliant, except I forgot to zip it close. So in the photos, I see what went wrong. I forgot to
Your
zip
spy
it up.
photo, we saw that.
Mature.
Didn't seem to be a problem, like it wasn't bouncing out or anything. But
Right.
had my hydration, my scratch in there frozen, which was
We- we-
brilliant.
we-
Yeah, the
Scratch.
frozen was brilliant, but I just didn't get enough fluids down early. So that's my what went wrong. Like people are passing me like, "What went wrong? What's wrong with you? What's you're dying?" And it was that I just couldn't get hydration. I was behind.
Oh man, that's the worst in that type of weather too, because you just get like dehydrated, dude. Your meat thermometer pops, and it's like you can barely get the pedals turning over. It feels like just like, yeah, that's a rough one. And you got to pay attention too. It's not like you're bonking when it's cold. You have like heat stroke and these type of things that can happen if you're out there, drastically dehydrated.
So I skipped the first two aid stations because I'm racing, right? And then I pull into the start finish aid station,
Amateur.
and I'm a mess, right? I have drank my whole hydration pack, haven't touched my bottles. I hand the bottle to the lady and she goes, "You need more hydration?" I go, "No, just pour that out and give me regular water." And then someone offers me a ketone and I'm like, "Ooh, ketone with 30 miles to go, not my thing. I'm not really into ketones, but I'm like, I'll take it." So like, and somewhere in there they had a Coke, which I didn't get,
Ah,
and I had 4 gels, never second gels. They seemed like they're okay. I hope there was no caffeine in there that was throwing me off. But anyway, my what went wrong, hydration, nutrition, hot mess. So anyway.
you know what just popped into my mind right there? I think I recounted on one of the early pods about one of the best nuggets of wisdom that Phil Anderson told me when I asked him the biggest difference between pro and amateur racing when I was over in Belgium to do my first pro races. And he paused for about 10 seconds, and in his stoic, kind of voice, he says, "It's like this, mate." He's all, pros start slow and finish, or amateurs start fast and finish slow. Pros start slow and finish fast. Which, to your point, you amateured past the first two aid stations and went from fast to slow. So the Phil adage from 1989 continues on to this day, 37 years later. Still good. Yeah, amateur. Dang.
All right, so blinded by science, we've covered that.
I kind of had one on my blinded by science that I was going to bring up.
Okay.
What do you got, DS?
All right, my blinded by science, and I can't remember the specifics of why this popped up into my head a couple of times recently, but my blinded by science is with the bike industry and how they market to. And I was trying to think of the best way to describe this cyclist, and I was going to say mid plus, which is like middle age. I would say is whatever 45 and 50, and up from there. That I just, I continue to do fits on people that are sold a Tour de France bike platform of crank width and length and handlebar drop and stuff like that. And it's just so not the right, not the right bike for them. But if you look at so much of the marketing, I can understand they're paying Remco and, different people all this money, but they're marketing to them on the technology that those athletes are using. And from what I've seen, your average couple days a week cyclist, day or two, maybe weekend cyclist who's from middle age up, that is just so the wrong bike for them. And so you're being sold on, oh, you're going to be 2 watts faster over 40K, or you're going to be doing this, saving whatever advantage rolling resistance. But that's technology that you need to be going 25 miles an hour to even use. And so if you're riding at 14 miles an hour, doesn't matter. I was telling you guys, my analogy is like, most people in that age category, if they're unhappy with a new bike, and I've seen it happen many times, they don't come in and say, oh, the carbon fibers aren't optimally aligned as they promised in the marketing material. They come and say, dude, my back is killing me, or the bike handle's sketchy, and those are more items that just shows it's just like not the right bike for those people. I think the technology itself is great, like lightweight carbon fiber, disc brakes, wide tires, all of that. But I just think it misses the mark how a lot of those people are being marketed to, and then they end up with a bike that doesn't really deliver as promised, which I think ultimately is bad for the bike industry, because you want that person, Ed, you ran a bike shop, right? You want repeat sales. You want that person to come back and maybe buy another bike in a few years or more gear and stuff like that. But if they're unhappy with the bike itself and they're not riding that much, then that whole system kind of breaks down. So that's my blinded by science, is getting blinded by marketing science, the average consumer that doesn't really pertain to them. Yeah, there you go. No offense to the bike industry, of course. Like, I love it. I love bikes. I'm just saying, you gotta give the people what they need in that situation, not what you've already produced and want to sell.
Yeah, not what you convince them that they want.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do you guys ever see this? Does it seem like a recurring theme? Do you see people out on rides that are touting some technology, and you're just thinking, you don't want to tell them like that the money you just spent doesn't matter, or that's not, what's going to really help you, or something along those lines marketed? Do you guys see that?
I've seen it. I mean, I don't do any group rides up here, but every once in a while I'll go down to the Bay Area. Usually, go riding like Marin County or Sonoma County. But there's some big rides in Marin County, road rides I've gone on in years past, and kind of exactly to your point, as they, you're on some ride that someone's done, 400 times, and you've done it twice, and they know exactly, where they're going to attack and where the crosswind is. And I find myself 3 groups back chasing with a few people. And I remember getting chasing with some guy who I don't know who he is, but he's to your point, he's on some super aero road bike with deep wheels, with his handlebars slammed all the way down. And he can put out a lot of power. And I'm like, well, I want to be in this dude's draft because I'd like to catch up to that group that we can see that's 30 seconds up the road so that I can sit in. But he's so sketchy and on that bike that I'm afraid, a little gust of wind comes and instead of going like that, he goes across the road because he's not anticipating, or, he's got his head down and not looking, and all of a sudden looks up and there's a pothole and swerves around it, or gets the front wheel around it and the rear wheel hits, and it's just I've seen that, and I'm like, that's someone who did their research on the internet and got a bunch of information and applied it like it was like the end all be all for them, and it just didn't work. So I've had that happen more than once, and fortunately I've been riding long enough that it's fairly easy to pick those people out. You can just kind of see by their body language and how what kind of the comfort level it looks like with them on their bike, and just whether they're stiff or whether they're relaxed. And generally they're also stiff because they're like trying to figure out why this bike they just paid $12,000 for, it's like they're riding a 2x4 down the road. So
that's a frustrating part I'll see for people that come in for the new bike, and you're trying to fit them, and you realize that they are at the end of that platform, whatever platform they've been sold. If it's the road platform, like the bars are up, this is flipped, this is rolled, this is that, and they're at the end of that. You can't get anything more out of it, and they're still not where they need to be. And that's the part, selling those bikes to people. I just, super deep drop bars for somebody who can't even reach them, things like that. I've fit, from doing fits, I've definitely seen a lot of that come in with people with a new bike, which is always rough because you don't want to tell them like, that bike was not going to fit you.
Yeah.
But, that's what you really need to say. It's going to be a pain in your side or your neck or something as long as you ride it. But anyway, yeah.
I think I live on the raw, ragged reality of just trying to make those bikes work. I'm an early adopter. I was the first one to have an iPod in my place of employment by a year. People were still using MP3 players. I'm an early adopter to technology. Probably always will be. Comes from my grandfather, who was a scientist. He was the first guy I ever saw have a fax machine. I helped him before his nap figure out how to send a fax. Um,
The
you know,
birthplace
so
of Tech Rico.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm an early adopter. So you'll find me jammed on the wrong road bike when I'm 80.
Right.
I'll be on whatever the latest is when I'm 80, and that'll be good or bad. I've already had back surgery. I'm on the latest, flight attendant for my mountain bike. I think it's game changing. I think flight attendant is coming to gravel bikes. I think full suspension is coming to gravel. Why is it not? I mean, I spent the whole weekend listening to my roommate talk about his Redshift, elastomer suspension seat post and stem, and I'm like, that's just like a little bit of flex. I
Yeah.
mean, he needs full suspension, and he's riding a steel Ritchie retro bike on very narrow tires. I mean, of course he's ecstatic about his Redshift suspension. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, of
Taking
course,
that.
your bike is like unforgiving and ruthless.
Yeah.
So I'm an early adopter. I'm always will be, and then, you probably can write that on my grave. That it might be my downfall. But
But
anyway,
maybe the early adoption will be that you'll be early adopting when they finally get the new Geo all figured out, and then you'll be up on the early adoption of that one too. So
yeah.
that could be
Also,
it.
I ponder the early adoption of wide mountain bike tires. Have we gone too wide? Like, at 2.2, 2.4, are they sloshing into the turn? Whereas a slightly smaller mountain bike tire is going to have some, better performance. Like, we always overdo everything. We
Right.
went too wide on mountain bike tires.
We did already with the plus size. They had where
Yeah.
everybody was like a 2.8 and a 2.6 on everything, and they've come back down. I mean, even like downhill is just now starting to use some 2.5s, a little bit sprinkled in, but mostly they're on 2.4s, which you would think on downhill is counterintuitive. Oh, you want a big tire to go over it. But there's just certain size tires that fit on certain bikes and work the best. It's like dirt bike tires are a certain size. They tried going to bigger fronts and they play around with the rears a little bit. For the most part, they get some different width rears for the different bikes. And then that can, interchange them. But the front tires, fronts have been a 21. They tried making a 20-inch that was a little bit smaller and a little bit wider, for a bigger contact patch. And those are in like the early 2000s. But for the most part, they've kind of stuck with what works. And I was thinking about that because and two things. And I want to talk about suspension on gravel because you are actually slowly changing my mind on that. But on my Carpcito Carp on Sunday, I was riding up around all through Montecito, Farron Trail, where Tony Vincenti famously fell over backwards into the creek with his double straps on. So all the trails we've been riding for since we were, kids for me. And I was riding all that. I was just having the best time. I mean, the bike was just dialed. I told you I got a little bit fatter tire in there. I got a 50 mil in the back and a 2.1 in the front. It's like whatever. I haven't put the calipers to it yet. I'm sure it's around 51 and a half or 52 or something like that. But it's just that bike on those trails are so much fun. Like I'm just out riding, having a blast. The great amount of grip for how rocky it is. The tires are fat enough, but not so fast that you can just blast through. And I was just laughing, thinking about our early hardtails that we rode. And those were on like 2.0, 2.1, 2.2 tires. Remember that Fisher Fat Tracks was a 2.2 that was like a game-changing front we would put on. And they were rigid steel, obviously 26. The 29s are way better. I mean, they roll over stuff a lot better. And I was like, it just brought it up in my mind when we were talking about tires right now, that's like certain tire sizes and certain bikes, it's just like fits perfectly in there, and it just made me think that the trails that were fun on those hardtails back then are still a blast on a fully rigid, gravel bike now. So, but and I wanted to add, anyway, I'll let you guys, if you had anything to, to add on to that. And then I wanted to bring up your suspension and gravel part too. I mean,
Well, I think also
yeah.
I'm very hypocritical, right? Because I at first enjoyed riding the wrong bike off road. I rode 32 road bike and finished the 85-mile rock cobbler. My friends will still tell that story,
Right.
but that isn't sustainable. And I don't know how, I think riding an XC bike in that same 85-mile rock cobbler would be more fun. So I've
Right.
changed my opinion. So it's also exposure, and it's just, we're all contradicting ourselves all over the place. So
So I was thinking about it because part of me just, excuse me, I go, you had said a little while ago, suspension's coming to gravel. I'm like, nah, it's some suspension, and I was thinking about it. And even though I do love the hard, the rigid aspect of a gravel bike and all of that, but I was just thinking about it depends on what you're doing. But if you want to go out and ride, and I was thinking about the ride that you were doing, I was thinking about it while you were out there in Arizona. I'm going, dude, of course he would have rather had his XCO bike, maybe with drop bars on there, which makes me laugh about the whole drop bar mountain bike debate, But would that just be a better bike? Probably, yeah. That size tire, that suspension platform, right? You would have just breezed your way through there. So maybe there is an argument for a gravel bike with suspension on it. I mean, really, as much as I want to have one bike that feels somewhat of like slightly purist, But
Well, it has to have the
yeah,
technology to lock it out and be constantly
correct.
locking it. It has to have a servo
Yeah,
locking it out the whole time, because no one with a lever is going to lock it out quite enough, in my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah. I think the suspension dyno, but I mean, just the suspension components and the shock technology is so good. The lockouts on the shock. I mean, forks have always been good. The shocks are really great. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it comes ripping down the road. How much suspension comes in. What do you think, KS?
This, I'm just enjoying what I'm doing. I can see, well, I mean, but like you were talking about Ed's experience in Arizona. I don't know that course, but I could see, to your point, it's almost like you'd have a couple of different setups, because suspension's not going to be optimal everywhere, just like rigid's not optimal everywhere.
Yeah,
Right. So do you have a rigid bike? Do you have a front suspension bike? And do you have a full suspension bike?
maybe.
That's N plus one plus one.
Yeah,
And I, we're spoiled up here that it's not that rough. So I don't really ever feel like I don't really
yeah,
need it that much. And it's like, if I can go ride on smooth route 1 or rough route 2, I'll just go ride smooth route 1.
right.
Or certain,
Yeah,
or certain,
to the
right, or
bike.
certain, or to the bike, or certain times of the year, I'm like, I know in the winter that this route's way better, but in the summer it gets all blown out, or vice versa. So it's just kind of playing around with it. Um, I just need to get myself to the point where I'm riding the bikes that I own more frequently before I start playing with more stuff. Because
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
right, it's easy to play with all that stuff and get all excited. But it was like today I was like, I'm not going to work on this stuff. I'm like, no, I'm just going to go ride my bike. And that was the best choice I could make. So
yeah.
I know it's a little sidebar on that, but I'm not, I don't know. I mean, my buddy Chris Foyt, when he got his most recent Stig mod, and he's had probably 4 or 5 of them, he put a suspension fork. He never even put the rigid fork on the bike. He got the frame
Yeah,
set.
he loves it, huh?
And he loves. He's like, oh, Cass. He goes, I never would even go back. But it's like, everything's a little different. He's also the dude that rides on his levers 98% of the time. Like, I
Right.
never see him on his drop, so he's further out front there, where I ride a little different style. So yeah, I don't know, at some point. But like I said, I got a new bike project in the works. It's more of it's a road project, and I'll talk about that on further episodes. And then maybe after that it would be something with suspension. But like I said, I need to just ride outside more frequently before I worry about any of that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Before you invest, yeah, I feel you. Yeah, I don't know. I think the gravel bike, it's like part of it what I like about it is the fact that without suspension, I have to pick a line around things, and I think that's just for the trails. Like you kind of ride to the capability of your bike. And I think that touches on a little bit what I was saying. Like that bike as it is so perfect for the trails that I'm doing, because the stuff that's bumpy, I got to remember to ride with my hands a little loose, or keep this loose, or, pay a little more attention to where I stick the front end in, just because there might be bumps there and I got no suspension. But, if I had a fork on there, who knows if I would be taking lines that were also fun. It's like when we first got suspension on our hardtails, how all of a sudden you're just like, oh yeah, I can ride straight over that.
Right. And then, and then a dual suspension mountain bike, and then it's like, I can really ride straight over that, right? Just point and go. Yeah. Yeah,
I remember we used to go up and ride, obviously Romero on our XC bikes. And this one time it was Chris Johnson and Jim White and I feel like there was one other person. I think Johnson had got a full suspension mountain bike, or maybe they were on their hardtails, but I rode my foes up. It was the winter time. So I put like a triple on the front. And I just remember coming down and I was just like sitting, just like pedaling just through the roughest stuff, Romero, the fire road. It wasn't that bad back then anyway. And it was funny that it wasn't even fun, because I didn't have to like go around, stick like, like they're coming around the outside windows, you'd have to wait out and maybe dart around. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to go right through the area where all the water runs in. There's all those rocks that I could never hit on, on my XC bike, but on that bike, I can just pedal right through that stuff. So it definitely makes it, having a bike that's matched to what you're riding, definitely for me, makes the ride fun, makes it more fun.
And I think, we've spoken about this before, learning to ride on a rigid bike and then on a hardtail with an inch of travel in the front I think it made you a more capable rider. I wouldn't say a better rider, but more capable, because you had to go around stuff, you learned to go around stuff. And then as the bikes became more capable, you could also go over stuff, where there are a lot of people that, like I say, people that never shifted a friction shifter or rode without a clipless pedal or rode without full suspension. Like, I think that the window that they can operate in is pretty small, and
right.
The different bikes you ride on different trains, there's a bigger window or a bigger world you can ride in. And I think to that point, it makes it more interesting. It makes it more fun, and makes it easier or less difficult when you get into a rough situation to get yourself through it, because you've done it before versus like it being new. So I think there's an argument both ways. Yeah.
Sounds like an argument to ride all the bikes.
Yeah, that's it is. Ride all the bikes. Yeah.
I just had a thought that I like the bike that keeps me away from cars the most.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've just noticed that my ride is way more enjoyable if I don't interact with cars. So I think my mountain bike around here keeps me away from cars more, and I can ride in the at night or in twilight and not feel like I'm at risk because I'm not encountering a car. So
and where you live, I mean, those hills are steep. You need mountain bike gearing to get up those. Like you just have a lot of like steep stuff, and then also like slippery DG coming down and rain ruts. That's all like way more perilous, harder to go up. And then also going down on a gravel bike, mountain bike, you have so much oversight between your suspension and fat tires and everything. You just, go right through stuff. But I agree. That's a big part of the reason why I'm, not as keen to ride pavement anymore and just like riding dirt more and more, is to get away from the cars as well. We got a lot more cars down on this end of the state than you do, KS. Up where you are.
Up where we are, yeah. I mean, you get to the Bay Area, it's packed, but
yeah.
I did, like I said, I did do a road ride today, and I was out for 75, 80 minutes. I mean, maybe a dozen cars. I mean, maybe that's a little more, nice. But they were so, and I know like these little goat path roads to take, or I'm going to ride this road going down and this road going up, because of traffic. And I chose a good route and fortunately at the time of day I could do it. So it was, it was a good thing.
Yeah, you have any amateurs this last week, Cass?
Well, I do. Yeah, I do have a big one. So it actually, my amateur is myself, and then I was blinded by the science of it. So I got a twofer on this episode 21 here. A BOGO, yeah. So I told you guys I'm working on a road bike project here. So last spring, I was, wanting to ride. I hadn't been riding a whole lot, and I wanted to ride my road bike some. And it's so hilly around here. I was like looking. I have my bike set up with SRAM, and I was like, this rear derailleur will handle up to a 36 tooth cog. So I'm like, I'm gonna get a 36, couple of cassettes for 36, and then I also had one with a 33 as a top cog. So, but to do that, I also needed to lengthen my chain, right, and adjust the bead tension. So I went through this whole thing late last spring, and I got myself, with 1036 cassette, put it on the bike, lengthened the chain, went through that whole process, got it shifting good. I even went into my Garmin on the SRAM page and changed the gearing so I could see the gearing that I'm in, and that tells you how much time you're in. And I started riding that, and I was like, man, it's better just to have this little bit lighter gear, and so I've been riding that like since last May. And so I just started working on this new road bike project the last couple of weeks, and I was kind of corralling all the parts I had to see what I needed, because I'm just going to sell the bike I have and get all new stuff. And so I'm like, I know I bought some cog sets in that, so I wanted to get everything in one place and look at it. And so I pull out my one box. I'm like, oh, there's that second 1036 I bought. And then I pulled the other box out, which I thought was a 1033 to complement the one I had. And I go, that one says 1036 on it too. I'm like, did I take the cogs out and just swap them? So I opened both of the boxes, and they're like, the packing material hasn't even been touched yet. And so they, cassettes come in this nice box. It's like this beautiful Christmas box. And I open it up, and it's etched on the back cog, right? And it's set in so that the small cog is down in. So you see this big cog when you open the box. It says 1036. So that I open up the other one, and I go, and it says 1036. I'm like, did I buy 3 of those? And then I went and looked at the other box, which I have in my toolbox to stash it in because it's such a nice box, and it says 1033 on it. So basically I went through this whole process, bought these new cogs, and when I swapped it out, I just swapped one 1033 cassette for another one, put it on. And so that's my amateur, right? I went through this whole thing, spent the money, the time, did this whole thing, got it all working, shifting perfectly with the rear gear. And then I was blinded by science that I had convinced myself in my mind that I was pedaling these lighter gears and doing this whole thing. That's the best. So I was like, I was working in my shop down in the basement. I just, I was like, if I had a mirror, I would have just said, amateur, pointing at yourself. But then the whole like mind over matter thing, right? It also speaks to how much we can convince ourselves about certain things when they aren't even true.
Yeah.
That being said, I did throw the 36 on, and it still shifts perfectly. And I was definitely able to sit down on some stuff that normally I have to stand up. So as I slowly work to get the legs going, and if at some point, if we do decide to do this event up in Humboldt in July, the standalone hopper event, it's got a lot of climbing, so I'll be wanting that.
So what's your inner chainring on that setup?
It is it's a 35.
So you have a 35, 36, so just over 1-to-1.
Yeah. So this SRAM, it's a all machined one piece 2 chainring thing that mounts, right? So they do a 33 46, and they do a 35 48, and I think it's a 37 50. And so I kind of found that middle ground. I like to have enough of a big chainring. For me on the road, a 46 is not a big enough chainring. If you get in any kind of tailwind or any kind of false flat thing, I like to be able to do that. And so it works. Yeah. So it's a little over that 1-to-1 on the road bike. That's pretty good.
I thought you were just saying with your rebuilt off-season power that on your sprint days these days, the 4610 just wasn't enough, on a flat road with no wind to handle the Chaos Quadzillas.
Yeah, but you're making the assumption that there actually is off-season power or power to be rebuilt
or sprint workouts.
or sprint workouts. Yeah, I mean, that's making a lot of assumptions there, Diaz.
Yeah.
No, I just like to ride all the bikes because it's, as we talked about at the beginning, right? It's like, it's the happy place.
Yeah.
Being up pedaling's better than anything else.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good amateur.
Yeah.
All right. So our last segment before we wrap up is the Positive Pete, named after Pete Stetina. And we'll just remind people that, Pete ruined the spirit of gravel when he brought privateer style racing to gravel when he won BWR, and he ruined gravel, and he's always needs to stop and pee, and he was anti-aero bar, and he doesn't like team tactics, he doesn't like hydration packs, and the younger generation was, jumping all over him, and I thought it was a little unfair, and I thought, he's a well-spoken, positive guy, so we created the Positive Pete. So
yeah.
KS, you got a Positive Pete?
My Positive Pete goes to Mathieu van der Poel, that when he won last Saturday at the Omloop Nieuwsblad, he waited for Florian Vermeersch to come across the line and give him a hug, great ride, because I think he realized that without Vermeersch, that it's very likely they wouldn't have stayed away. Those two guys did the lion's share of the work. And so not only did he wait for him to finish to give him, a pat on the back, whatever you want to call it, he also mentioned it in his post-race interview. So I thought that was pretty classy, that he's he's one of the best racers in the world, but he also, he comes across very aware and very level-headed. And so that was it. I think there's a classy award. Positive Pete goes to.
That's a good one. I like it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I have one quick one that I'll try and paint here. See how I can tell this story. So everyone has their opinion after an event. Everyone's an expert on how an event should be run, and where the nutrition stops should be, and should we have an all women's start, and how were the vendors, and where was the shade, and do they have Cokes, and everyone's got an opinion on how to be an event promoter. And I went on the Taco Tuesday ride 3 days after BWR Arizona, and Shelby Tinsman showed up, and she is one of the very, very few people that puts on these BWR events. And I give her the Positive Pete Award because she ran the podium. She corrected the announcer on this is how the start ways work. This is the rules. These women can't draft this group. She met the pros when they came across the line and handed them a drink. Tried to coordinate some hospitality, find them shade. She is the phone number that you call on your race number when there's an emergency. Actually, it says non-emergency. It's Shelby's phone number. And she was juggling a dad getting airlifted out of the venue, the son, having heat stroke, trying to reach the mom, trying to juggle that, trying to get the podium correct. The podium wasn't quite right. She had to cancel the podium. It takes a lot of people to produce one of these events, and we all have an opinion. And I think event production is a thankless job. And, without her family, her mom and dad come and help, and then her sister-in-law and, other relatives were directing traffic in the parking lot. It took her whole family to make the event go. So,
nice.
I think event production is a thankless job, and that she deserves a Positive Pete of the week.
All right. I like it.
That's great.
Yeah. That is a good one. That does make a difference, and it's pretty cool an event like that where one person, their efforts can really be seen and recognized, and definitely can make things flow better. Give people a more positive experience. That's a perfect one.
Yeah, she also runs all the sponsorship, so
right. On top of all that, yeah. Well, my Positive Pete I wanted to throw out is. After watching the first few round of races is to Modern Adventure. over there. You know, we got a new U.S. team over there, and I just think about all those racers, you know, going over there and cutting their teeth. And I just thought two things that really stuck out, which wanted to give me the positive, or I wanted to, you know, give them the positive peep for, is one, their kits stand out. You know, whatever that color is called, I'm not sure, but you could pick them out all the time in the peloton. It's funny how that will go. Certain years where jerseys will start to look the same. You know, Ineos is orange now, but those kits stuck out. So that was one good thing, right? You want them to stick out. And that too, the guys were aggressive. They were in the breaks. They were trying to attack the sprint finish. They were doing that, and to the point of their kits standing out, they were easy to pick out, all that aggressive racing, because the kits were standing out. So I thought for their first showing, going over and getting their feet wet in their first races over there on the big screen, I thought that was pretty awesome. So I'm giving them props for good looking gear and for taking the race to the front.
Yeah, I would call it maroon and gold. You know, a lot of universities use that color, whether you like those universities or not. And that Ekoi helmet pops out too, you know?
Oh,
it's
yeah.
pretty easy to identify. It's kind of like the Avis, the German company. It's easy to pick that helmet out.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Well,
all right.
I think that wraps up episode 21. Please share this with a friend to help us grow. And your comments on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, your comments and reviews help us grow. So thank you very much, and we'll see you down the road.
And I would also throw in that Ed's putting up shorts on Instagram as well. So we do have little snippets of each podcast, little parts that we talk about are up there as well. So you can check us out there as well.
Yeah, those same shorts are on YouTube as well. If you like short little clips on your TV or your laptop, you know, YouTube is amazing for that. So
Ed's our Ginsu chef, chopping it up.
Yeah.
See you guys.
See ya.
All right.
Bye.